Welcome to Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV. Big Fox, my computer was freezing up there. We are broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio here on Marcus Street in Corning, and this is the M.A. Neal Financial Services section of our program because we are being joined again by Bruce Whitmarsh. Thanks so much for being on the program.
Well, thank you for having me.
Well, we've got a lot to talk about. How's the planning for the big 100th anniversary celebration?
So we are well into it. We're excited about it. It's coming tomorrow. So
Well, you better be ready, right? And how long has this been planned for? I mean, obviously you knew the 100th was coming up, but I mean
Right,
the actual nitty-gritty.
So we've been working on tomorrow's event probably for 6 or 7 months.
Wow.
So just like with every other thing else too, it's not just that day. We have a new exhibit up. We have other new exhibits that are going in, and so there's always all the moving parts, and you're trying to fit it in.
And I want to talk about that in a moment.
Sure.
And we're, of course, talking about the Chemung County Historical Society 100th anniversary celebration. That's tomorrow, 1 till 5 p.m. And you've got a lot of events surrounding the anniversary itself. Tomorrow, specifically, you've got music. It's a family-friendly event. But let's start first. You do have a special guest, and I wanted to find out a little bit more about this.
Sure. So J.D. Isles is a local realtor in Elmira and makes his living that way, but he also does a Facebook Live event called Hidden Landmarks, where he taps into the history of our area.
Oh, that's neat.
And does a show I believe it's Friday mornings.
Wow.
And, takes you to some place that maybe you drive past every day, and there's a little bit of history and some extra story there. So he's going to come and talk. His talk's going to be Bohemia on the Chemung, which is an interesting story. It's a place that people used to go for the summertime, for a week or a weekend. And it's basically gone now.
Isn't that interesting? Because the name, that's why I wanted to talk about it right at first, caught my attention. So he's going to give, what would you say, like a lecture on it? Is that?
Yeah. He's got photographs and
neat.
he's talk probably half hour, 45 minutes on Bohemia on the Chemung. Yeah.
Oh, isn't that interesting? How does, I should have him on the program. I don't want to ask questions for him, but when he does his research, does he seek out people like you to find out more?
Yeah.
Is that how that works?
Yeah. So, and that's in fact how we first came to know JD. That he came to us and said, "I'm interested in history. I'm interested in doing this. Can you guys help?" And that's one of the things we do. We're pleased to be a resource for the community.
Do you find that happens quite a bit, where people maybe their family history, or just they get that history bug? Some people get that and they just come to you.
Yeah. Actually, one of the really interesting things that happens for us. Is you mentioned family history, the genealogists. We have people who make trips to Elmira specifically to come to our museum and our archives, because that's where their family history is.
Isn't that interesting? And you have an amazing archive, right?
We have a tremendously large archive, and it gets used a lot.
Well, and I think we talked about this last time. I do want to get back to the anniversary celebration, but now I'm going down kind of a rabbit hole. Do you find that people want to donate stuff to you a lot? Do you accept donations?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And we are always looking for donations. We have purchased some things here and there through the 100-year history.
Of course.
But 99% of what we have is donated.
Oh, that's great. And that's what makes up the exhibits?
Yes.
Oh, yeah. That's great. Oh, so let's go back to the anniversary celebration. Again, it's this Saturday, 1 till 5 p.m. That's right on the museum grounds, right?
Yep.
And you're going to have live music as well.
Yeah, so we've got this fun band. It's the New York Excelsior Cornet Band.
Oh, that's great.
And they do 19th century music on 19th century instruments.
Okay.
And
no synthesizers.
So, no. But it's fun because it's not just come and sit down and listen to music. They spend some time and talk about the history of the music, some of the history of the instruments. So it's more than just a little bit of fun music.
So I could ask you, what do you expect from this week? Because I mean, this is the first time you've celebrated 100th anniversary. But what can people that are going to attend expect from the Saturday event?
I'm hoping folks will just come by and have a good time.
Yeah.
Attend JD's talk, and sit down and listen to the music. Take the time to go through the museum.
Sure.
Have some cake and lemonade.
Hey, see? So, perfect.
I know that's why my son's coming. So.
I'm excited about the band, but I think that lecture is going to be really interesting as well. So how can people find out more before we move on?
Sure. So the event is tomorrow from 1 to 5. Mm-hmm. It's free, open to the public. 415 East Water in Elmira is where we're located. You can go on our website, ChemungValleyMuseum.org, And
I'm going to put that up on the screen. I'm blocking you out. I
Okay.
apologize. I hope you don't mind, but I thought now's an appropriate time. I wish you were on the other side of the screen, but yeah. So that's at 415 East Water Street.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And ChemungValleyMuseum.org is the website, and you can always give us a call. But yeah, if you just come by tomorrow and have a good time.
Have a good time. And you mentioned other events surrounding the 100th, like the exhibits. What can we expect from the exhibits?
So we have an interesting exhibit we put up. We're normally, when we do an exhibit, it's about other things.
Yeah.
And this time we were the topic
Isn't
of
that
our
great?
exhibit. So it talks a little bit about our history and how we got started, but it also talks about what we do. Sometimes, well, I know not sometimes. People come into a museum and you see the final product.
Sure.
You experience the exhibit. But how do exhibits come about? What is it we do as a museum? So we did an exhibit on exhibits.
That's perfect.
So yeah, and we pulled some fun stuff out, and I think people will enjoy it.
Well, let me ask this, because you think 100 years is a long time, I would think, for a historical society. Do you know what led it to really start? Who decided? I'm assuming community leaders said we really need to start preserving our history.
Yeah, in our particular case, we can trace it to one guy, a gentleman named Arthur Booth, who was an active community leader. He happened to be a doctor, and in 1923, he said, we need an organization to preserve our history.
Wow, what an amazing story. And you can find out more, again, by going to the Chemung County Historical Society and the museum. And then you said, okay, we're going to be really busy. It's not only busy planning, but it's a long day, 1 to 5. And then you said, you know what, we should do something next week and just keep the momentum going. And I know there was a lot of talk when this was first released, but the Mark Twain Country Tours were originally canceled because, like so many, you couldn't find the workers, right?
Yeah.
So what was the reaction when they were first canceled?
Yeah, so basically everybody was kind of disappointed.
Sure.
And certainly, us and our partners were disappointed. It's something that had been going on for many years.
Yeah.
So we worked to hopefully find a way to bring them back. We continue to be hopeful to have them back in full force in 2024. But for 2023, we were able to, find the resources to do just one weekend.
Okay, but that's perfect. So I'm assuming with one weekend, it's got to be very limited because this is a popular tour, right? So do you have a lot of people reaching out already?
So we do. The last I saw, we were about 60 or 70% full. So yeah, for people who are interested in taking the tour, it's September 1st and September 2nd, Friday, Saturday. There's only 3 tours each day, so please call ahead and make a reservation.
Well, because I don't want people to be disappointed. I mean,
Right.
If you wait till the last minute, it's probably not going to happen if you're already that full. And it's very affordable. Just $10 for adults, $5 for children.
Yeah, and that also includes admission to the museum.
Oh, so that's a great day. So find out more again at ChemungValleyMuseum.org. Well, I guess I have to wish you best of luck this weekend because I'm sure it's going to feel good, maybe a little bittersweet after all this planning, but I'm sure you're going to have a lot of fun. Is everybody at the museum excited?
We are. I think it's one of those, like any big event, you do all the hard work before, but once the event gets there, you can sort of sit back and relax and enjoy it. And we're proud to be 100.
Yeah, you should be. Do you now? I think that was a little presumptuous. You think you'll be able to sit back and relax, or do you think you'll be on edge?
It maybe until at 5 o'clock tomorrow.
Yeah, 4:50. You get that last 10 minutes to relax. Well, Bruce, thanks so much for being on the program. Best of luck tomorrow.
All right, Frank. Thank you.
All right, we'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV. Big Fox, stay with us. Well, thank you again to Bruce Whitmarsh for being our guest. I know we hit the ground running with our M.A. Neal Financial Services section of the program, but I want to make sure that you were aware. I know we talked about it a couple months ago with Bruce, but that's coming up tomorrow, and I mentioned it during the week. But the 100th anniversary, that's amazing, 100th anniversary of the Chemung County Historical Society. It sounds like it's going to be a very fun event tomorrow, so do not miss it. We have some other announcements we'll be making later on, of course. And let me take a step back. Broadcasting 101. This is Frankly Speaking. I'm your host, Frank Acom. We're broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio here on Market Street in Corning. I thank you so much for joining us. I want to put up our contact information. So we will be spending, what do you figure, about 50 minutes talking about a photo? No, we have other things we're going to talk about. Of course, we have to mention the mugshot. We'll give you some reaction to said mugshot from both sides, and I would love to have you weigh in on it. Have you already purchased your swag with the mugshot, either pro or con? If you have, send me a picture or tell me what it is that you purchased. First, just as a public service announcement, our friend Sheriff Allard, who was on the program yesterday from Steuben County, of course, released this late yesterday after he was on the program. It was reported that a person who identified herself as a member of the Board of Elections visited a person in the Urbana area, in her home, asking personal identification questions. It is also reported that when asked to provide identification from the Board of Elections, this person displayed none and then left the premises. According to the Steuben County Board of Elections commissioners, no home visits are done to ascertain personal information by any actual member of the Steuben County Board of Elections. So keep that in mind. They are impersonating Board of Election officials, exploiting that concern that some people have that they're registered or not, whatever the case, to steal your identification. They will not show up at your house. If someone were to show up at your house saying they're from the Board of Elections, make sure to call 911 and report that impersonation. So just giving you a heads up on that. Okay. Do you think Mark Meadows is maybe a little disappointed, or do you think he's happy? So Mark Meadows surrendered in Fulton County just a couple hours before Trump, and he's always like the third page down before his mugshot pops up. Not as exciting, I'm sure. I'm sure he's probably happy about that. I don't know why I mentioned it like that. Let's do it. There it is. The mugshot is, if you haven't seen it already, everywhere. But we have to do our due diligence here on Frankly Speaking. There is a mugshot of Donald Trump. This is the fourth time this year he has faced criminal charges. Here's a little bit of what we know. I don't know. Do you want me to keep that up? Could I? I was trying to impersonate the mugshot. I guess there's a lot of talks behind his team saying, which direction do we go? Okay, that's enough of that. Oops, that's enough of that. Which direction do we go? Do we have a smile? Do we have a stoic? Do we have this, which is kind of, the word he used, never surrender look, okay? So he arrived at Fulton County Jail at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. After he surrendered, he was placed under arrest and booked on more than a dozen charges. These are just the facts that I'm presenting to you. Again, I'd love to have you weigh in on it. The jail records list him and we'll have a little fun with this later, 6 foot 3 inches tall and weighing 215. Yes, 215 pounds, according to the official document. I guess they got that information from the president himself before. And so some are questioning those numbers. His booking number, in case you are wondering, if you want to, play him on your lotto ticket tonight, was P0. Maybe that's PO, one or the other. Probably PO. 1135809. And then, of course, the mugshot was taken. He agreed to the $200,000 bond and other release conditions, including not using social media. That's to target co-defendants. But you know what's interesting? He actually, for the first time, and we do have to take a break, but for the first time in, I don't know how, over 2 years, he took to Twitter. I know it's called X now, but I'm not going to keep doing X, formerly known as Twitter, the whole time. He made his first post. It was a photo of his mugshot, and it said, "Election interference, never surrender, DonaldJTrump.com." So we will talk more about this. I'd love to have you weigh in on it. What were your thoughts? A lot of people were speculating yesterday what time it would happen. Then news somewhat broke that it would be later just due to processing a former president, motorcade situation, security. So we knew it would be late. It was a little bit later than I expected, perhaps. But we will talk about kind of the, I don't know, not the fun, the conversation around it. When I say fun, it's because there's so many varying opinions on this that it gets not overwhelming necessarily, but kind of overwhelming. So I want to hear your opinion because that's the only one that matters. So we'll be right back after this break with Frankly Speaking. here on WYDC TV. Big Fox, stay with us. And we are back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV. Big Fox, I'm your host, Frank Akam. We are broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio here on Marcus Street in Corning. We're talking about the mugshot. Okay. I will say that I received from a viewer, I think this is a brilliant idea. You know, I've had Sheriff Schramm from Chemung County on the program. I've had Sheriff Aller on, actually just yesterday, from Steuben County. Maybe I could call in a couple favors, get my mugshot, start putting Frankly Speaking mugshot swag everywhere. We'll be all over Etsy. I think it's a good idea. I think that's a very solid idea. So weigh in with great ideas like that on the program at any time, and we'll try to get to them before the end of the show. Okay. The president, Donald Trump, said, "I really believe this is a very sad day for America. This should never happen. You should be able to challenge an election. The election was a rigged election, the stolen election, and I should have every right to do that." That was one of his first comments after turning himself in Fulton County. As you know, and I do think this is a valid point coming from the former president. As you know, you have many people that have been watching over the years do the same thing, whether it's Hillary Clinton or Stacey Abrams or many others. And I do think that's a good point. Stacey Abrams and Hillary Clinton both challenged the validity of elections. Last I knew, Stacey Abrams has never dropped that. And I don't know if Hillary necessarily has in some comments she's made somewhat recently. And actually, we talked about it on the program a long time ago, Al Gore is still questioning the 2000 election. But continuing, when you have that great freedom to challenge, you have to be able to. Otherwise, you can have very dishonest elections. What has taken place here is a travesty of justice. We did nothing wrong. I did nothing wrong. And everybody knows it. Typical Trump there. And everybody knows it. I've never had such support. And that goes with the other ones, too. What they're doing is election interference. They're trying to interfere with an election. There's never been anything like it in our country before. This is their way of campaigning. This is one instance, but you have 3 other instances. It's election interference. So I want to thank you for being here. We did nothing wrong at all, and we have every right, every single right to challenge an election that we think is dishonest, and we think it's very dishonest. So thank you all very much, and I will see you soon. So that was his comments as he was in Fulton County. He said it was not. Afterwards, he spoke with, I believe, it was Fox News Digital. He said getting his mugshot taken was not a comfortable feeling, especially when you've done nothing wrong. Trump's attorney, Alina Habba, said earlier this month that the decision to snap a mugshot of the former president was a bit of an ego trip on the Fulton County District Attorney, Fannie Wills. And I do think, they've made it a point from the very beginning that we're going to get that mugshot. And I do think that's just another example where people will latch on to the political nature of this, right? The politicalization that we hear so much about the legal system. The purpose in this, again, attorney Alina Habba, the purpose of a mugshot is when you don't recognize someone. You think there's a flight risk. This man is the most famous person in the world, the leading Republican candidate right now. And I do think that just adds fuel to the fire of those that believe this is politicized, that this is a political persecution or prosecution, whatever way you want to look at it. That's why I was never a fan of having the mugshot. I think it does a lot of harm. But I will say the former president, Donald Trump, doesn't seem to have as much of a problem with the mugshot because they started with merchandise right off the jump. Let me throw it up there on the screen. Right off it was like, how did they even prepare that quickly? I know people in the Etsy world were doing the same thing. The Never Surrender tagline was a part of it, and the 2024 Make America Great Again logo. They had things ranging from $12 to $34, bumper stickers, coffee mug, beer koozies in black and white, short sleeve, long sleeve, all in black and white. Isn't that interesting? The 8 Never Surrender items available on the Trump merchandise website with the former president's mugshot. In addition to the new merchandise, Trump added the photo to his campaign website with the following note. Today, at the notoriously violent jail in Fulton, Georgia, I was arrested despite having committed no crime. And they have had some major troubles there in the past at the Fulton County, Georgia jail. I was reading up on that this morning. The American people know what's going on. What has taken place is a travesty of justice. That's going to be a common thread. You're going to hear that term quite a bit. He's mentioned it frequently so far. And election interference. The left wants to intimidate you out of voting for a political outsider who puts the American people first. But today, I walked into the Lion's Den with one simple message on behalf of our entire movement. I will never surrender our mission to save America. So we're going to take a look at what both sides had to say about this. That was kind of just the facts from the beginning. I know, how are we doing on time? Yeah, I better take a break. Joe Biden making some political hay out of this. We're also going to talk about some conservative commentators. I really hope we have an opportunity, and I think we will, but to talk about the internet being outraged at the stats of how much he weighed, his height, all that. Maybe we'll get a chance to talk about it. But again, please reach out to me. I'd love to have your opinion on the infamous mugshot. So when we come back, we'll talk about that and much more. We do have a couple New York State issues. Hopefully we can get to, even if it's quickly. So stay with us. And we are back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV. Big Fox, I've got a couple of great comments that people have been sending in and a nice phone call. We're going to get to those in just 1 second. I want to make this announcement before I forget because this is going to be special. It's the highlights from the Ferrario Elmira Jazz Festival right here on Big Fox. You can tune in starting on Sunday at 1 p.m. and then you see the other dates listed there. So I did not want to forget that because I know you would not want to forget it as well. We have a couple other announcements that will affect your weekend that we'll get to in just a little bit. Okay, let's go to some viewer comments. Here we go. First one. Trump lost weight. Looks like things are taking a toll on him. That's a fair point. Some people have said that behind the scenes that, the stress factor, the various things that go into being indicted 4 times, that will take a toll on anyone, I would think. And the mugshot, I think he wanted to show history, his disdain. That is a very good point. That's what the look is. This is a call. Hello, I'm calling about the show. I was a Republican, but I'll never vote for Trump again, ever. And I think this is all just a lot of wasted time and money. And he should just back down. That's my opinion. Thank you. Well, thank you very much for that message. We'd like to read all comments here on the program. We don't always get to all of them, so please don't take it personal if we don't, or if it's a repeat or something like that. But that, very good points. I know there's a lot of people, and there's such a circus around it, and I blame very much the media on that. Not on the mugshot, but around Trump in general, that I think some people get overwhelmed by the constant coverage. And we mentioned on the program yesterday, is anybody talking about the debate? I mean, whoever won that debate, whoever you think won the GOP debate the other night, they only had a small window to capitalize on it, because as soon as that mugshot was taken, that is everywhere, as you know. Even in Joe Biden's campaign, kind of. He celebrated Trump's arrest as, quote, a great day to donate to his campaign, meaning not Trump's campaign, obviously, to Biden's campaign. That's a weird way they worded that headline there. I don't know. I mean, if you ever thought, I wonder if politicians write their own tweets or their own campaign messages. You be the judge if Joe Biden wrote this. Apropos of nothing, I think today's a great day to give to my campaign. Donate to the Biden-Harris campaign to fight back against MAGA Republicans. Okay. Yeah, I think the one thing that people underestimate is what messages like that and what some of the talking heads in the media had to say about the mugshot and the arrest and kind of the celebratory nature of it all. I think they underestimate how much that fires up people that maybe don't like Trump or would rather not vote for Trump, but see this as concerning. There's even a piece at CNN that they can't fully admit that they don't like this happening, the precedent it sets, but parts of it they don't like. This is from David, I'm going to try here, Ortlicker and Eve Hannon from CNN again, saying Trump indictment in Georgia on RICO charges sets a dangerous precedent. So they put their disclaimer out there. They have to prove their bona fides to the CNN crowd, saying, Trump, his assault on the electoral process, it's justified some of the charges. But prosecutors should not stretch criminal laws in ways that would be unfair to Trump and that would open the door to unwarranted prosecution of others. And we talked about the precedent this sets. And I've said in the past, I know there's a lot of Democrats or maybe never Trumpers that are celebrating this and have celebrated all 4 times. But I think if you take a step back, no matter what your feelings are about the former president, take a step back and say, what does this do for the future? What does this do if, let's say it's not even Trump, let's say it's a different Republican president. What if they try, or a different DA, or you name it, start to go down this avenue where, hey, it's hard that the precedent's been set. It's happened once, we can do it. It's our turn to do it in the back and the forth. But I'll continue. They're critical of the RICO, the Racketeer Influence and Corruption Act. Not surprisingly, there are other criminal laws that are straightforward and appropriate to invoke against Trump. And then they go through some of the examples that they see. But when they use the RICO charges, it raises concerns. Legislatures enacted federal and state racketeering statutes to ensure that prosecutors can effectively dismantle organized crime groups, most notably the mafia, by criminalizing participation in an enterprise with criminal goals. So, just to wrap it up here, because we do have to take another short break, if I'm not mistaken. Yes, we do. The principle of accountability for Trump is critical. So they're saying, yes, keep going after Trump. But so is the principle of a fair system of justice. Prosecutors can hold the former president responsible for any serious misconduct without invoking RICO and compromising the principle of fairness that protects all of us. Perfectly adequate laws against election fraud, obstruction of an official proceeding, influencing witnesses, and other alleged misdeeds by Trump can be employed without setting dangerous precedents or raising questions about the integrity of what is already a politically divisive case. And we've talked about the divisive nature of this, and that's why I go back to my original thought that I don't like the idea of a mugshot being released. I think at a divided time, this just divides us more. And as Trump's lawyer said, people know what Trump looks like. So this does make it look more politically motivated, just like the RICO charges, which just adds more fuel to the fire of people that believe this is a travesty, to use the president's term, of the justice system. So let's take a break. More on, and again, these are more, I guess you would say, on the left's position, but please keep those comments coming in. I know you have an opinion on the mugshot. Everybody does. So, hey, if you want to change the topic, if you want to talk about the debate, we can do that as well. So we'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV. Big Fox, please stay with us. Thank you again for joining us here on Frankly Speaking, broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio. I'm your host, Frank Acom. Thank you again for people that are reaching out on this topic. We are going to, at probably the end of the program, looking at our time here, probably talk a little bit about New York State issues that I think you will find very important as well. So make sure you stay tuned through the whole program. I know you're going to anyway, but just a reminder. I did also want to mention, because I said there's a lot going on this weekend. We talked about the Jazz Festival that will be playing on Big Fox. There's also a couple quick more announcements, public service, street closing. You remember I mentioned this just the other day. There is the Bites on Bridge Community Night. It's a free event on Bridge Street here in Corning. It's family friendly. The whole block is going to be closed for the entirety of the night. It's actually 4 blocks I should say. Kids activities, a power wheel race, food trucks, on-street vending from our small businesses and other nonprofit organizations. So there are the street closures today. Just keep that in mind if you're out traveling in the Bridge Street area. Okay, now back to the mugshot. All right. This I find to be another example, and this is the media. I'm showing you all sides. The media has found Trump guilty already. There's no innocent until proven guilty. If you read the headlines, I mean, he did it. There's no denying it. Now it's just a matter of time. That's kind of the attitude. And I think, again, feeding into the political nature of this and why people who, again, maybe have been on the fence over Trump or not even like Trump, switching because of some of the reactions. Here's one. He's been booked. His mugshot has been taken. And incredibly, this might not end Donald Trump's race for the White House. So what they're saying, just because they have no self-awareness in the media, this is in general. I have been around the media long enough, very little self-awareness. Julian Zelzer from CNN goes through and talks about the landmark nature of all this that would end any other candidacy. But this is not necessarily the reaction we're seeing today, meaning, of course, yesterday. With Trump facing an array of legal troubles, the latest news is, for many Americans, just another booking on just another day, and what is just another example of Trump being Trump. And this is what I mean by the lack of self-awareness. It is extraordinarily dangerous for Americans to become immune to allegations of wrongdoing by our politicians. Let's talk about that on numerous levels. I could spend a whole show probably on that sentence, but let's not do that. Don't worry. To sound cliche, it is the boy that cried wolf. That you've had a media that has created scandal after scandal. And let's say you're saying, Frank, some of them were justified scandals. Some of them were justified. The key point there is some. We had 4 years of constant. I'm not even quoting Trump here, but you can go back to Russia. I think that may be where we first started realizing how it was going to be. There was some before that, but how that was going to be constant. Scandal, going on false information like the dossier, which is ironic because then they wouldn't report on Hunter Biden's laptop because they said it was Russian disinformation. Do you see what I mean? So they don't see their hypocrisy, Julian Zelzer, because they're so blinded by their hatred of the former president that they're willing to really ignore anything else. And they're in a bubble, right? They're in a bubble. So all the people they know think alike on this issue. So they have found him guilty already. So his presidency should be done. We don't need the courts. They don't like him. So why even bother going through the court proceeding, essentially? But then they say, after 4 years of that and now 3 years of constant, this is a scandal, this is a scandal with Trump. And then they go, it is extraordinarily dangerous for Americans to become immune to allegations of wrongdoing by politicians. And there's also, and I know I have to take a break, darn it, but I know there's also the fact that, okay, every single thing that Trump does is a scandal. But then we see something like Hunter Biden and potentially his father's connection being buried for how long? The plea deal really ignored until it could no longer be ignored. And you continue with so many scandals that are put by the wayside because of whoever the political affiliation is by the media. And then they continue to trump up, no pun intended, charge after charge after charge against Republicans, not just Trump, but Republicans in general. And then they wonder why people have had their eyes glaze over when they see the mugshot or they see the next article about this about Trump, that about Trump. I mean, I know I mentioned this before, and it's anecdotal, but I was talking to a friend that very much dislikes Trump. Very, very much. And it was the same thing. When another indictment's announced, she said, oh, okay. It's not. But then you have the media celebrating it, almost giddy over it in their coverage. So you see that this really, really bothers them, that it did not get the kind of reaction they thought, that the poll numbers continue to rise. As the former president said himself, he's one indictment away from the White House. And I don't think that's too far off if you look at the constant polling and what happens every time there's an indictment or something of this nature. Many of the guardrails in our political system require politicians to realize that the public has limits to what rhetoric and behavior they will accept from our elected officials. And then he goes through history of various scandals. But again, that one sentence that is extraordinarily dangerous for Americans to become immune to allegations of wrongdoing by our politicians. Well, I would say the media was immune and would not mention it when it's anything related to, for instance, the Biden administration. They won't talk about that. But what he's saying is it's dangerous for you not to buy into their talking points on Trump, hook, line, and sinker. Maybe they should have thought about that after their 100th scandal story that proved to be nothing. I'm not saying this is nothing. Don't get me wrong. That's the furthest thing of what I'm trying to say. I'm just saying the overall picture of the time of Trump's presidency and up until today. So let me take a break. A lot more to talk about. Please weigh in on it. I swear we're not just going to talk about a photo all morning. We've got plenty left to discuss. So we'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox. There we go. I knew we were going to have a couple seconds without any audio, so I thought I'd put that up on the screen because I want to thank, again, Bruce Whitmarsh for being our guest on the program this morning to talk about that special 100th anniversary celebration. Okay. Conservatives unloaded on, we've had more of maybe a left's take on it so far. Let's take a look at what conservatives had to say about it. Former Trump official Stephen Miller said it's sickening, authoritarian. They're flaunting their crackdown on democracy. Today is another dark day in U.S. history, said GOP Representative Byron Donalds. A day when we, the people, and the world will witness a continued weaponization of the justice system against a political opponent, former president of the United States, and leading candidate for the upcoming presidential election. This is a travesty of justice. So that's going to be a common phrase. Just be prepared. Senator Marco Rubio said those who decide to start using indictments, prosecutors, and even mugshots as a weapon in a political campaign have unleashed a destructive new era in American politics. And I do have to agree with Marco Rubio on that. I think this is, and I hate to keep using the word precedent, but we're going to because that's exactly what it is. Once this starts, you can't get this back in the box. You can't unring this bell. And I think that is a very troubling sign for a country that is already so greatly divided. And that's why I was so opposed to the mugshot. Even though I know Trump has capitalized on it, I was still opposed to it because I think it does more harm and sets, again, that precedent. We did have a comment from a viewer that said, question, what would happen if the Democrats and the media got their way and Trump backed out? Who's next in line for the same abuse? And I think that's fair to ask because they, going back to precedent, they have found something that they believe that works. So it may not be criminal charges that they would find on a DeSantis or a Ramaswamy, whoever's next, because it will be whoever's next in line. Whoever, if Trump were to say, okay, I'm done, and whoever moved in the first, yes, it would be the same treatment. DeSantis started to see it a little bit, and the attacks on his wife, remember that, started to see it, and then his polls didn't really go up at all, so they said, well, we don't have to continue to focus on that. But he started to see it, and that was just a taste of it. And he saw it a little bit in Florida too. But yes, they have set that bar. That's the bar they have set, unfortunately. So I thought that was a good point. We are going to talk about height and weight when we come back. Stay with us. This is Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox. We are back, and we got to move quickly. We have one more break before we wrap up things, but I've been promising it all morning. People are not happy with the weight that was put on the official record as Trump turned himself in, calling it an insane lie. Trump operative Alex Bruschwitz tweeted out, I think this is funny, 6'3", 215 pounds, because that's what it says on the official document. 6'3", 215 pounds. Absolute elite athlete, Trump 2024. Jake Tapper, of course. This is again about the fake scandals perpetrated by the media. They are making such a big deal out of this. Jake Tapper saying, wait, what? Why even weigh in on it? Is anybody surprised by this? Did anybody think for one moment that that information be accurate? I mean, maybe if you want to get outraged, get outraged. I think if you're outraged by that, and that's the thing you're the most angry at this morning, and you lose sleep over it, your life's pretty good. It sounds like you don't have a lot to worry about. So good for you. Take that as a blessing. Rick Wilson, a never Trumper who just hates Trump, said 215. That's an insane lie. If Trump I think he meant weighs, 215 pounds, then I have flowing blonde locks past my shoulders. Wilson's bald and also clearly not funny with that response. Nothing else he could come up with. Rob Reiner screaming. I mean, literally screaming about this on Twitter. Someone compared him to other athletes, and I think this is really funny. Larry Fitzgerald, 6'3", 218 pounds. Donald Trump, 6'3", 215 pounds. Lamar Jackson and Donald Trump both list their stats at 6'3", 215 pounds. The resemblance is uncanny. Yeah. And I mean, Jake Tapper, they actually analyzed this. So he lost 25 pounds since he was president? Is that what we're understanding, said Jake Tapper? Because he was, I believe Dr. Ronnie Jackson said he weighed something like 242 for his official physical, which people at the time were skeptical of that number. So, I mean, really spending precious news time on that, which I guess I technically am now too, but because they're mad. And then you wonder, going back to Julian Zelzer's piece, why people just shrug their shoulders and don't trust the media, or don't care about what they have to say. But that's why you stay here with the most trusted show. I hope so, anyway. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking, here on WYDC TV, Big Fox. All right, folks, buckle in, because we're going through some stories very, very quickly here. Mask mandates are reemerging. Amid an upturn in COVID-19 cases, I've seen a lot of you respond to this thought of mask mandates and kind of going to lockdown mode. And it does not seem like you would have a positive reaction with that, but there are areas, Hollywood movie studios, things like that, some universities that have put mask mandates back as the official order. A good post from the New York Post editorial board. It's not just COVID that's driven businesses away. And it's what they're saying is, never mind COVID. You know, a lot of people blame these companies moving to New York. It's not that, because it's long past the pandemic. It's the far left Albany laws. Other factors: New York's high taxes, crime, poor schools, cost of living, and yes, weather all share the blame. Yet New York progressives continue to raise taxes while doing little about crime. Actually, less than little about crime. They're actually coddling the criminals and tying the hands of law enforcement, but that's my words, not theirs. Schools and the cost of living. Little about the schools and the cost of living. And you've actually had last year Governor Hochul encouraging critics to jump on a bus and head down to Florida where you belong. Or you recall when Governor Cuomo said at the time, conservatives have no place in the state. Anyway, and finally, I'm not sure if you'll believe it, but I'd love to hear your take. Hochul says the New York City state won't force upstate, meaning us, upstate New York, to shelter migrants. All right, that's what they claim. Thanks to Bruce Whitmarsh for being our guest, director of the Chemung County Historical Society. I hope you can make it out to the 100th anniversary celebration, 1 to 5 at the museum grounds tomorrow. Have a great weekend, everyone, and we will be, this is what happens when I go fast. We will be back on Monday morning, starting at 7 with Frankly Speaking, right here on WYDC TV. Big Fox, have a great weekend. I look forward to talking to you on Monday.